All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kumbuhango, and we are group number 5. In my presentation, I'm with Marion Zumara, Christopher Itim, and Breton Mitambo. So as a group, we are doing a financial performance appraisal for Telecom Networks Malawi, PLC. So as an outline, we've got the introduction of what we're presenting. And we're doing a financial performance analysis, looking at the profitability of the company, the liquidity or financial status, the efficiency, as well as the investment ratios. So just to mention, we are doing a comparison of the performance of the company for the year ended 2022 versus the year 2021. We're also doing a comparison of the performance of the company to the Telecom Networks Malawi PLC against their main competitor, Airtel Malawi. As you know that we are in a sort of a duopoly market where we only have 2 operators that are on the market. And then we'll do a conclusion and the recommendation. So as an introduction, Telecom Networks Malawi is the pioneer mobile telecommunication company in the country, and it covers 88% of the country. That means it covers 88% in terms of network coverage. As a company, it's listed on the Malawi Stock Exchange, and in terms of market share at the moment in 2022, TNM has got 40% of the market share versus 60% of the market share owned by Airtel Malawi. In terms of the subscriber base, active subscribers or customers for Telecom Networks Malawi is 4 million, vis-a-vis the 6 million for Airtel Malawi. Just to add, in terms of the shareholders of the company, 41% of the shares of the company are held by Place Corporation, and the other shares are shared between Old Mutual, Nico Holdings or Nico Group of Companies, and the Magin Holdings. So Mario, you come in, take us through the financial analysis, and the rest of the team will follow.
All right, good morning, everyone. We did a financial analysis, but I'm going to present on profitability on 4 ratios. The first one is return on capital employed. This ratio talks about the profitability in terms of the capital employed. In other words, it's saying that how a company generates profit from the capital it has employed. So in the year 2021, TNM had a decline of 13.1%, that is from 22.7 to 9.6, whilst Airtel also had a decline in ROIs of 2.4%, from 49.7 to 47.3. So in summary, all in all, TNM and Airtel had a decline in ROIs, but TNM was worse off compared to Airtel. Next slide. The other ratio that we used to look at profitability is net asset turnover, which talks how sales are generated from the capital employed. It should be noted that the higher the ratio, that means it's more profitable. For both companies as well, there was a drop. For TNM, the drop was 0.4% from 2021. That is from 120.5% to 120.1%. And for Airtel, there was a drop of 4.1%. That is from 141.6% to 137.5%. In this case, Airtel had a greater drop than TNM. Next slide. The other ratio that we looked at was net profit ratio in terms of profitability. In this case as well, both companies had a drop in the net profit ratio. This ratio talks about how the company generates profit from total sales revenue. For TNM, the drop was 10.8%, that is from 18.8 to 8%, and for Airtel, it was 0.7%, that is from 35.1 to 34.4. So in general, TNM did not do well in comparison with Airtel. Next slide. The last ratio that we looked at in terms of profitability was gross profit ratio, which discusses how the company generates profits from total sales revenue. For TNM, there was a drop of 8%, that is from 38.3 to 30.3. And for Airtel, there was an increase of 2.4% from 41.3 in 2021 to 43.7. In summary, in terms of gross profit ratio, Airtel did better than TNM. So all in all, in summary, in terms of profit, it shows that TNM did not do well in generating profits from the revenue and the capital employed. And it also shows that the profits were 3 times less for TNM compared to that of Airtel. Next.
Good morning, team. Christopher Tim here. So I'm also a member of Group 5, as it has been mentioned by Kumbo. So I'll proceed to take us through the financial performance analysis, specifically focusing on the liquidity, which also measures the financial status of a company. So we'll continue to compare TNM and Airtel over the 2 years of 2021 and 2022. Under liquidity, we'll also discuss 4 key ratios. We'll start with gearing ratio, then we'll also look at interest cover ratio, current ratio, then finally the acid test ratio. Proceeding with the gearing ratio. So this ratio is a combination of debt and total equity, which is also expressed as a proportion of a company's funding obtained through borrowing. Overall, gearing ratio measures how a company utilizes its borrowed funds to amplify the return on equity. So over the 2 years of 2021 and 2022, for TNM, they had recorded a gearing ratio of 59.24% in 2021. In 2022, the gearing ratio declined to 54.09. So the decline is an indication that TNM, this indicates a reduction in the proportion of debt relative to equity compared to the previous year for TNM. So in as far as the gearing ratio is concerned, in summary, TNM had performed better as compared to Airtel. Next slide. So the next ratio that we also looked at is the interest cover ratio, which mainly assesses a company's financing decision to examine the income statement. So overall, what this ratio represents is that when a company takes on debt, it becomes obligated to pay interest cover on the borrowed funds. We also did an analysis for the 2 years of 2021 and 2022. So for TNM, the interest cover for 2021 was 2.22 times, whereas the interest cover for Tenium again in 2022 was 0.68%. So in 2021, Tenium had a comfortable interest cover ratio of 2.2 times, indicating that its operating profit exceeded its interest expense by 2.2 times. And this kind of analysis suggests that Tenium had a healthy financial stand in as far as their performance is concerned. Next slide. The next ratio that we also looked at under the financial status of both Tenium and Airtel is current ratio. So under this one, the current assets to current liability serves as an indicator of a company's liquidity, assessing its ability to fulfill its obligations for paying its current debts. So what we are saying is that a current ratio of greater than 1 is desirable. So if we had to look at performance of Tenium and Airtel, so for the current ratio of Tenium, in 2021, they had recorded 0.397. For 2022, they had recorded 0.366. For Airtel, they had recorded 0.994 in 2021. For 2022, they had recorded a current ratio of 0.913. Like I've said, in an ideal situation, a current ratio which is greater than 1 is the one that's desirable. So in this case, we would conclude to say both Tenium and Airtel did not perform well in as far as their financial status is concerned, because all their current ratios are less than 1. Next slide, please. The final ratio that we also looked at under the liquidity stroke financial status of both Tenium and Airtel, so is the acid test ratio, which is also referred to as the quick ratio, and it assesses a company's liquidity. What this ratio does is that it evaluates a company's ability to meet its short-term obligations by relying solely on its most liquid assets. If we look at the calculations that have been made, so the acid test ratio for Tenium in 2021 was at 0.358. For 2022, it was at 0.344. For Airtel, it was at 0.951 in 2021. For Airtel, again in 2022, it was at 0.88. So in 2021, Tenium exhibited an acid test ratio of 0.358, and this indicates that it had 0.358 times the value of its most liquid assets. That's the current assets minus inventory. I'll ask my other colleague, Breton, to proceed from here. Thank you.
Okay, so this is Kumba again. So in proceeding, we also looked at the efficiency ratios. We looked at the fixed asset turnover ratio as well as the capital turnover ratio. So on the fixed asset turnover ratio, as it is saying, is a measurement of the business ability to use its fixed assets to generate sales. So we did a comparison of TNM and the Airtel, and in 2021, what is noted is that in 2021, for TNM, the turnover ratio on the fixed assets was better than in 2022, which means the company was more efficient in using its fixed assets than in 2022. As you can see, in 2021, it was 0.83 against 0.79 in 2022. Similarly, for Airtel Malawi, they were also efficient in 2021 as opposed to 2022. The fixed asset turnover ratio for Airtel in 2021 was 1.44 vis-a-vis 1.32 in 2022. So both companies, what it means is they were more efficient in the year 2021 as compared to 2022. Other than that, we also looked at the working capital turnover ratio for both companies. Now, the observation is, interestingly, both companies had a negative working capital and a negative working turnover ratio. So as you can see, for TNM and Airtel, in 2021-2022, for TNM, it was negative 2.68 against negative 2.29. And for Airtel Malawi, it was negative 3.327 vis-a-vis negative 21.2. So maybe just to explain what the working capital turnover ratio is, now we're looking at how the company is using the working capital to generate sales. Is it efficient? Now, what we've noted is as much as the working capital turnover ratio is in negative, it's not necessarily that the companies are in a very bad state, but it goes back to the financing. So what we've observed is that for telcos or mobile telecommunication companies, both TNM and Airtel, they use debt financing as opposed to equity financing. So they take advantage of the cheap loans on the market to finance the business. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the companies are they can't support the business, but they're just taking advantage of the market and use the business, use the loans that are cheap on the market to finance the business. From that, we'll move on to Breton to take us through the rest of the ratios.
All right. I hope all members can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes, you're audible.
So beyond the analysis that we did on the other end, we also looked at the issue of dividend yield. When we compared dividend yield for TNM and Airtel, it showed that on the overall, TNM had a lower dividend yield because in the year 2021, TNM had a 1.72% dividend yield as compared to Airtel, which had a 9.8%. And in year 2022, TNM had no dividend yield since there was no any dividend declared in that year due to other reasons. On the contrary, much as Airtel's dividend yield also decreased, but at least it was positive at 5.95%. It should be noted that according to Ryan's 2021, a high dividend yield is a good thing. Nevertheless, a dividend yield that is between 10 to 15% or higher than that is also a signal for trouble, which may indicate that maybe the price of shares is falling. And also generally it is considered that any dividend yield above 15% is considered unsustainable. We also looked at dividend cover as another financial metric. A comparison of dividend cover between TNM and Airtel indicated a similar trend to the dividend yield. In 2021, TNM registered 2.24 dividend cover. And in 2022, there was nil, since, as we've already said, there was no dividend declaration in the year 2022. On the other hand, Airtel had a 0.995 dividend cover in 2021 and 1.34 dividend cover in 2022. As we are well aware, dividend cover basically shows how many times a company can issue out dividends from its net profit for that reporting period. And so what it means here is that in 2021, TNM could be able to give twice the dividend from the net profit of that year. However, in the subsequent year, they had nothing to give out as dividend. And so that's why they registered a nil or a zero dividend cover. On the contrary, you look at Airtel Malawi in 2021, they had a 0.995, which which basically means that since it's below 1, it basically means that they gave out more money in dividends than the money that they actually made as net profit. Despite that fact, you can see that in 2022, they were still able to give more dividends, and yet they were still able to cover their profit by at least 1.34, which means they had at least 34% of their money to be plowed back into the business as part of whatever this retained dividends, retained earnings, sorry. Beyond dividend cover, we also looked at the earnings per share, which was given in the financial statements by the two companies. Earnings per share for 2021 and earnings per share for 2022. As the name suggests itself, according to Gitman and Sota, 2015, earnings per share basically is about earnings that investors realize per each outstanding share in the firm. And also, Morris et al. 2009 argued that earnings per share is actually a true measure of the company's actual growth. So as we could see in 2021, TNM registered an earnings per share of 96 tambala per share, and they lost about 18 tambala per share in the subsequent year. On the contrary, their competitor, Airtel Malawi, had an earnings per share of 2.94 tambala in 2021, and the earnings per share actually grew in 2022 to 3.36. In 2022, as I've said. So as we can see, side by side, we can see that while TNM was actually shrinking over time, Airtel was actually registering real growth in terms of their capital, or rather their earnings per share. And lastly, in terms of investment ratios, we looked at price earnings ratio. In 2021, TNM registered a price earnings ratio of 25.98, and in the subsequent year, they had no price earnings ratio because price earnings ratio basically also utilizes the dividend that has been issued. And so because there was no dividend, it means most of the indicators in terms of investment ratios were nil in 2022 because there was no dividend. On the contrary, Airtel registered a 10.20 ratio in 2021 and 12.51 ratio in 2022. A price earnings ratio, I think we now appreciate that it's it's basically an expression of confidence that investors are willing to put into a company. So sometimes we can look at it that the higher the earnings ratio, price earnings ratio, then maybe the better. But at other times, it also indicates the cost of the shares relative to the earnings that people are getting out of the shares that they invest into. So if you invest, in this case, by investing into TNM in 2021, someone would need up to 25.9 years, or rather dividend cycles, to fully recover their initial investment. Whereas in the same year, someone would require 10.20 dividend cycles, in this case, years or maybe quarters if dividends are issued per quarter, to fully recover their money. So as we can see in 2021, we can see that maybe TNM's shares were overvalued because they were expensive. It is difficult to recover your money through dividends. Whereas it's a bit easier if you look at the smaller price earnings ratio for Airtel. It's easier to recover your money that you invest into the shares through earnings when you look at price earnings as a ratio to each other. So yeah, meanwhile, I think basically what we can also see is the fact that Airtel's investors have more confidence in the company by the fact that it's registering a positive PE ratio year on year. In conclusion, we noted that on the overall, Airtel Malawi's business has been a bit more positively performing, while TNM's business is deteriorating, especially if you look at the period of 2021 and 2022. Due to declining in terms of, we can see that through the declining of quite a number of indicators on the side of Airtel. And according to the profitability ratios, the operating cost for TNM were high. And so our recommendation as a group is that TNM should find means and ways to reduce their operating costs so that they could boost their gross as well as net profit. TNM should also introduce initiatives in terms of to win back the customer base and the market share. Because I think in our introduction, we said that TNM was a pioneer mobile service provider in Malawi. But at the moment, we can see that they occupy less than half of the market. So the company is also advised to strike a good balance between its debt and equity so that they are able to manage their interest expenses. And lastly, we are looking at the risk on the part of the investors to put their money into TNM. Looking at the 2 years, it is more risky, and therefore TNM may be forced to issue maybe a lot more, I don't know, premium in order for them to attract more investors into the company. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Breton. We can take questions. At least 2 to 3, or less than that.
I think there are a couple of hands. Sam and Jonty.
There's a hand from Sam, I think.
Yes, can I go on and ask?
Please, yeah, proceed.
Okay. I noted on the on your analysis regarding the sort of the profitability ratios that TNM's profit has been reducing, but you didn't quite specifically state what is it that is reducing these profits. Is it to do with the actual sales, or is it to do with maybe the capital invested in has increased over this time, and comparatively with Airtel as well? Has their capital changed within the 2 years, mostly on maybe the fixed assets and the like? That has also maybe contributed to the profitability of the two institutions, that Airtel should be more profitable than TNM. Thank you.
Mario, are you taking this one?
Actually, if you go into details, you'll see that TNM, in terms of assets, the assets increased. So it affected the ratios, so it reduced. So you wouldn't see the profits as of now. Probably the next year or so, you would see how the assets would generate profits. But and then also, just repeat your question, Kalua.
I think the question is what is causing the profitability or ratio to the profitability of the company, TNM in this case, to deteriorate. As you're putting it, I think it's an issue to do with heavy investment in fixed assets and the other operational costs. And on the other hand, what we observed when we are doing the analysis on the net sales themselves, they haven't increased proportionally to the investment that has been made to the business.
Okay. No, that clarifies it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other question? Jarrison?
Okay, just a quick one. One of the recommendations you made was that the company should consider reducing operational costs, but knowing the nature of the business, I don't know what other ways could be put in place to make sure that this does not affect the business in a negative way, knowing that it's purely customer-based business where you have to reach out in a way.
I can take that one, Mario. So I think leading from the developments that we've seen in the newspapers and other platforms, I think you may have heard that that's something that we have read as well, that one of the initiatives that the company is doing at the moment is to restructure its operations. So the restructuring shall mean they are, in other ways, doing some sort of retrenchment as well, where they're getting rid of some of the employees. I believe that is one of the ways that the strategy they're taking in order to reduce the costs, because eventually, if the employees are 700, maybe they remain with 500 employees. So they'll take away the cost of maybe human resource that was there, or reduce it significantly. The other thing on the restructuring that is happening from what we've read as well is the company is also outsourcing some of their functions. So the outsourcing is mainly on in areas where they know that there's a lot of human resource, the engineering and the other areas, the call center and others. So outsourcing, I think, shall mean they are also reducing the wage bill and possibly trying to manage the operational costs in different ways. So those are some of the initiatives that the company is doing at the moment from what we've gone through.
Yeah, so I'll also add on to say that another way the company is undertaking currently to increase its profitability. So apart from the retrenchment, as it has been shared by Kumbo, the company is also, in a way, has also introduced promotions that are aiming at increasing its market share. As it has been shared in our area slides, Airtel has currently a larger market share as compared to Tenium. So Tenium has currently introduced promotions whereby they're encouraging all clients who had their cards not in use for the last 6 months to have them in use now. So once you have your card in use currently as we speak, you have some bundle that's a voice bundle and also some internet bundle already uploaded into that card as part of promotion, or in a way coaxing clients. As they are coaxing clients, they are also aiming at increasing the market share. Over.
Thank you.
All right, that's clear. Thanks.
All right, thank you. In the interest of time, I think our time is up. Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Thanks and bye.
Ndoti basi we are done.
But I was thinking we would have maybe a few. Would it recording it at Hacker, or what's the way forward? Isaac, activities of a group here, what's up? Is it?
Yeah, I think let's go over group ya WhatsApp because ababa anamaliza koma yango dula abruptly. So ngati palipo kufunika kuti tilowe apapa ali panga advise, but let's go over group ya WhatsApp.
Yeah, key is Eugene. Through you, we have the privilege. Could you and what was update if recording has been successful and the uploading modalities? I know he will do it, but we just have to be told as to when and that level of comfort anyway.
Anyway, maybe because ababa recording ya kupitilira ngati atumize omwe, maybe let's log out and if it is reconvening, we can reconvene to agree way forward.
All right.
Yeah.